I'm a certified clinical EFT practitioner, and I'm also a certified narcissistic trauma-informed heart shine EFT coach. So I
Okay,
specialize.
hold on.
Yes,
Hold
it's a
on.
mouthful.
We just need to stop. I got so much interest with the word narcissist as our heading. It
Mm-hmm.
sounds like a really big subject. And it's interesting that there's now certifications for this specific space. So
Yeah.
it'd be really interesting to know why this was your arena of choice.
Yeah. I've had narcissistic abuse and trauma, and it impacted my life in a lot of ways, and it impacted my business. A lot of which I'll go through in the presentation, but it can affect your self-worth, it can affect your fear of being visible, it can affect just your trust in your intuition, even in making decisions. It can cause confusion. And I'm finding that it's even in a lot of very successful business people, right? And so it's interesting to think about, like, how is that affecting my business when I'm already super successful? But it can creep in these ways that can limit like even how far you're going, even when you are successful. But also it can lead to burnout with that being successful. So I'm very passionate about helping people just navigate narcissistic abuse so that they can show up and create even more income while creating more joy and less burnout, and creating boundaries in their life and business and not feeling guilty about it. Right. And a lot of my clients don't even know where, like, they're like, where would I even set a boundary? So we go through very customized and where they're getting burned out, and teaching clients that boundary work isn't about. A lot of times I think we're taught that when we set boundaries, it's for that other person. Like, I'm going to set this boundary so you don't do that. Right. And
Right.
but really, and then we get so triggered when they do that. We're like, no, I set a
Hmm.
boundary. Like, you're not supposed to do that. But we can't control other people, right? And so then we get really confused. I'm like, well, I'm not going to do boundaries because that didn't work. And so we get kind of confused on how that looks. But really, boundaries is about you. And so it's like, if you do that, which you might,
Hmm.
because you're just going to do that, then I'm going to remove myself, or I'm going to limit how you can communicate with me, or I'm going to,
Hmm.
and so it's really about what you're going to do. So it's taking your power back. And it doesn't have to be
Wow.
this, like, this firm boundary that's, in stone and never moved again. Because then we get a lot of, I think, anxiety about, like, what if I set the wrong boundary and then it's just out there forever? Right. But
Hmm.
there's also but boundaries can be very fluid. And so there's a lot of intricacies into boundary work that's really huge for this type of trauma. And in general, I mean, boundary work is very important and can be very loving. It's very self-loving, and it doesn't have to be aggressive to the other person either. And it can actually create better relationships because people know where you're at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious though. I love that you said that boundaries, because that is the assumption. It's for
Right.
everybody else, but really it's for you.
Yeah.
Let's just
Yeah.
be honest with that.
Yeah.
But the word narcissist has been really coming out in the
Mhm.
big way where uh for me in sort of this generation space of where I'm at, it kind of is this funny thing you say about somebody who's very self-absorbed, or that toxic, it's all about me personality. Give us a little bit more about what actually narcissist is.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of this will be in my presentation too, but in general, and I want to like make very clear, I'm not a therapist, so I'm not here to diagnose anyone. So there is like a narcissistic personality disorder, but there's also like this whole spectrum, right? And so people can have
Mhm.
traits and also not be a full-blown narcissist personality disorder. So really in my work, we use that term, but it's really about how is that person's behavior affecting you and affecting
Mm,
your nervous system, right? Because
right.
yeah, so just using the term, like, narcissists in general, very self-absorbed, tend to have like high superiority, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
deserve special treatment, and people
Right.
are envious of me. And if someone has something I don't want, they get very envious of that person
Mm-hmm.
and jealous. Um, there's so many ways that it can come out. Oftentimes they will nitpick and criticize and demean the person that they're getting narcissistic supply off of. And narcissistic
Mm,
supply is really any reaction, positive or negative, that you give to a narcissist, which is a mind twist, right? So
that
they
is.
get like they feel important and superior through positive praise and adoration and all of that. But also, if they can make you angry, then that also creates that feeling of importance too. So no matter how you
Right.
spin, they're getting stuff off of it. And so it can be
Yes.
hurtful. Yeah. So there's a lot of ways that it can come out. Um, and yeah, and it's really the effect that it has on the people that go through that. And it can be with a parent,
Mm-hmm.
a caregiver, a boss, a partner, a sibling. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's so many, it's not just one size fits all either. And it can come
Yeah.
out in different ways. And it can be very confusing because um, because people with narcissistic traits can also be very kind. Right. And so then it
Oh,
gets you in that like, but are they or aren't they? And so that's why I just tell people, like, don't play that game in your mind of are they or aren't they? If you know that something is affecting your nervous system, that's what we go in and we work on. Right. It doesn't matter if
mm,
they are or if they aren't, because I think
right.
it can be very guilt. It can create a lot of guilt trying to figure out, right? But we're not
For
here to
sure.
diagnose them, and they may have a lot of traits and still not even be the disorder, because the
Right.
disorder itself will not change, cannot change. Like it's a fixed personality disorder. Someone with traits, which we can even pick up traits if we've been around a narcissist. So we can act
Mm-hmm.
as narcissistic in certain ways. But if it's just traits that we've picked up, if we recognize those and work on those, we can heal them. And so that sets us apart, right, from that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's a whole thing. There's so many
I
different ways
love
we can
it.
like talk
I
about
love
it.
it. I love it.
Yeah, but
So please,
it really does like affect our business and how we show up in the world. Um, and so, yeah, I do have like some slides and stuff if you want me to jump
absolutely.
in.
I'm
All
in.
right, I'm gonna share and I'm gonna see if, if this works. So bear with
Yes.
me, and I'm gonna go to slideshow and see if that works. Okay, can you see that?
Hmm.
Okay,
I can see it.
all right, and I'm going to go here. So I just want to welcome everyone to this training on narcissistic trauma and how it affects our lives, including our business and financial success. Let me see there we go. So like I said, I'm Sylvie Stuart. I'm with Taproot EFT, and I'm certified in clinical EFT and narcissistic trauma-informed Heartshine EFT coach. So I specialize in helping clients navigate narcissistic abuse. And I'm not a therapist, but I do help clients shift energy so their nervous system can ease out of fight or flight. And I wanted to just do this quick disclaimer, just that the information in this presentation is not mental health or medical advice, and it's not a substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions that you may have regarding a mental health or medical condition. So I want to take a moment to acknowledge that discussing narcissistic abuse can be deeply challenging. It's a topic that can bring up a lot of emotion, like fear, sadness, anger, and sometimes even confusion. And these are normal responses to what you've been through. And I want you to know that you're not alone in feeling this way. This is a safe space for you to explore those feelings. There's no judgment here, only compassion and support. So, whatever emotions arise during our time together, just know that they are valid and part of your healing journey. You are free to express yourself, to feel whatever comes up, and to take this at your own pace. So I want to start by understanding what narcissistic trauma is. Narcissistic trauma occurs when we've been in relationships with narcissistic individuals, often during our formative years. So this could be like a parent, a caregiver, a partner, a boss, a sibling. And narcissists tend to manipulate, demean, and control, leaving their victims powerless, unworthy, and confused. These experiences can leave deep emotional scars and significantly impact our self-worth, confidence, and ability to set boundaries. As adults, we might find ourselves struggling with self-doubt, people-pleasing, and fear of rejection. These patterns can severely affect how we show up in our business and directly affect our income. Healing from narcissistic abuse is a process, and it's okay if it feels overwhelming at times. But you've already taken a significant step by showing up today, and you're stronger than you realize. So I want to take a moment again just to emphasize that we aren't here to label anyone as a narcissist. There is a personality disorder called narcissistic personality disorder, but there's also a spectrum. So we can get narcissistic injury from being exposed to a narcissist, which can then come out as narcissistic traits. And just because someone is expressing narcissistic traits doesn't mean they have the personality disorder. So we're not here to diagnose anyone, but instead, I'm more concerned with how this person's behavior is affecting you. How is it showing up in your body? How is it creating a fight or flight response in your nervous system? We're here to allow the nervous system to soften and for a deeper sense of ease and peace to show up in your body. So I'm also going to be using the term narcissistic abuse or trauma for the sake of this presentation, just referring to the behavior. Don't worry about if the person that comes to mind is a narcissist specifically or not. We're just acknowledging a grouping of behaviors and how it's affecting you. So characteristics of narcissistic behavior. It's important to recognize that the signs of narcissistic abuse, as it often happens gradually and can leave you questioning your reality. So here are some of the most common indicators. One is emotional manipulation. So narcissists are often use emotions to control you. They exploit your kindness or guilt trip you into doing things their way. They can also play victim to shift blame and avoid taking responsibility for their actions. Gaslighting. This term is used incorrectly a lot. So let me just clarify that gaslighting is when the abuser distorts your perception of reality. They might deny things that they've said or done, making you question your own memory or sanity. You might find yourself constantly second guessing your feelings, thoughts, intuition, and perceptions. Number 3 is lack of empathy. One of the hallmarks of narcissism is an inability or unwillingness to empathize with others. The narcissist may seem indifferent to your feelings or even dismissive of your pain, making you feel isolated and misunderstood. 4 is constant criticism. A narcissist often belittles or criticizes you, sometimes subtly and sometimes overtly. They might attack your appearance, your intelligence, or your abilities, all to undermine your confidence and keep you feeling dependent on their approval. 5 is envy. Often envying others and believing others are envious of them. 6 is entitlement. Expecting to be catered to and are easily offended when their needs aren't met. 7, grandiosity. Having an inflated sense of their own importance and expect special treatment. And maybe the most tricky and confusing is that they can flip into victim mentality. So they can go from superiority to victim mentality. This is where they constantly are positioning themselves as the victim, even when they are the ones causing harm. This manipulative tactic allows them to avoid responsibility for their actions, deflect blame, and garner sympathy from others. By portraying themselves as misunderstood or wronged, they can maintain control and manipulate others into feeling guilty or obliged to meet their emotional needs. This reinforces the narcissist's power in relationships and perpetuates the cycle of emotional manipulation. So they might isolate you from friends and family or create an environment where you're constantly feeling on edge, always trying to appease them to avoid conflict. The trauma from narcissistic abuse doesn't just stay in the past. It often manifests in behaviors that can further complicate your life and relationships. The impact of this kind of abuse is profound. It can lead to feelings of powerlessness, feeling helpless and unable to change the situation, feelings of unworthiness. Constant criticism and demeaning remarks can lead to deeply ingrained belief that you are not good enough. Feelings of confusion. Gaslighting and manipulation can cause victims to doubt their own reality and judgment. Feelings of anxiety and depression. Living in narcissistic relationship often means walking on eggshells, never knowing what will trigger the next outburst or criticism. This constant state of hypervigilance can lead to chronic anxiety as you're always anticipating the next negative encounter. Over time, this anxiety can become overwhelming, affecting your mental, emotional, and even physical health. And it gets its own side because a big one is feelings of guilt. Guilt is a common and deeply ingrained emotion in victims of narcissistic trauma. It often shows up in several ways. One is feeling responsible for the narcissist's behavior. Victims may feel that they are able to blame, that they are able to blame, are to blame for the narcissist's actions or moods. They might think, if only I had done this differently, they wouldn't have been upset, which leads to excessive self-blame and second guessing. 2 is difficulty in setting boundaries. Guilt can make it incredibly challenging to establish and maintain healthy boundaries. Victims might feel they are being selfish or hurtful by asserting their needs, leading them to prioritize the narcissist's desires over their own well-being. Which makes sense because after being in a relationship where your boundaries were constantly violated or dismissed, you might struggle to set and maintain healthy boundaries. You may worry that setting boundaries will lead to confrontation or even abandonment. This can make it difficult to protect your energy, time, and emotional well-being, leaving you vulnerable to further manipulation or abuse. And then 3, fear of abandonment. Narcissists often exploit their victims' fear of abandonment, making them feel guilty for wanting to leave or even distancing themselves from a toxic relationship. The victim might stay in relationship out of guilt, believing that they are abandoning the narcissist if they leave. Because again, they can flip into that victim mode. 4, internalizing negative messages. Narcissists often project their own issues onto their victims, leading the victim to internalize negative messages about themselves. This can result in pervasive feelings of guilt, as the victim constantly feels that they are not good enough or inherently flawed. And 5 is overcompensating in relationships. Guilt can drive victims to overcompensate by trying to be perfect or by constantly trying to please the narcissist. This can lead to burnout and a loss of self-identity as the victim becomes consumed by the need to avoid feelings of guilt. 6, struggling with self-care. Victims may feel guilty for taking care of themselves or prioritizing their own needs, as they have been conditioned to put the narcissist first. This can lead to neglecting self-care and further decline in their mental and emotional health. 7, fear of hurting others. Victims might avoid confrontation with the narcissist or addressing their own pain out of fear of causing conflict or emotional pain to others, even when it's necessary for their own healing. This guilt can keep them trapped in unhealthy dynamics. So understanding these manifestations of guilt, it's crucial in the healing process. Recognizing that these feelings are a result of manipulation and emotional abuse can help victims begin to release the guilt and reclaim their sense of self-worth. It's important to recognize that these behaviors are about the abuser's need for control and not a reflection of your value and worth. Some long-term effects are, well, these experiences can significantly impact our self-worth, confidence, and ability to set boundaries. And so here's a few examples of how. It can lead to low self-worth. Constant criticism can lead to pervasive self of unworthiness. Victims can often internalize the negative messages they've received, believing that they don't deserve success or happiness. When you're constantly told either directly or indirectly that you're not good enough, you start to internalize those messages. You may begin to even believe that no matter what you do, it will never be enough to satisfy the narcissist or anyone else. This pervasive sense of inadequacy can seep into all areas of your life, making you doubt your abilities, your decisions, and even your value as a person. And another common outcome of narcissistic abuse is what's called frozen self-worth. Over time, the narcissist's manipulation makes you dependent on their approval for your self-esteem. You may find yourself constantly seeking validation from others, unsure of your worth unless someone else is affirming it. This frozen state can make it difficult to develop a sense of self that isn't tied to external validation, leaving you feeling empty or lost without it. It can also lead to low confidence. The manipulation and control can erode self-confidence. Victims may become overly cautious, second-guessing their decisions, and fearing judgment from others. It can lead to poor boundary setting. Narcissistic relationships often involved a lack of respect for personal boundaries. Narcissists often abhor boundaries, actually. As a result, victims might struggle to establish and maintain healthy boundaries in other relationships. Some long-term emotional and physical impacts. Narcissistic abuse can shape your life in profound ways. The emotional toll of narcissistic abuse is profound, but it also is important to understand how this trauma affects your body. Nervous system dysregulation is from living under constant emotional stress can wreak havoc on your nervous system. You might experience chronic stress, which keeps your body in a state of fight or flight. This can even lead to insomnia as your body struggles to relax enough to allow you to sleep. Over time, this chronic stress can weaken your immune system, making you more susceptible to illness and disease. And then there's the mind-body connection. The emotional trauma from narcissistic abuse often manifests in physical ailments. You may experience headaches, digestive issues, chronic pain, or other symptoms. This is your body's way of signaling that something is wrong. Emotional pain that hasn't been addressed often finds expression in physical form. Understanding this mind-body connection is crucial for healing, as it allows us to see the importance of addressing emotional wounds in order to help heal physical symptoms. There are emotional and physical components to physical symptoms, so it's powerful to look at both. PTSD and complex PTSD. One of the most significant emotional impacts of narcissistic abuse in extreme cases is the development of PTSD and complex PTSD. The relentless cycle of ideation, devaluation, and discard can leave you in a constant state of fear and hypervigilance. Complex PTSD in particular arises from repeated trauma over a prolonged period of time, often in close relationships. This can result in flashbacks, nightmares, and a deep sense of mistrust in others. So some effects in adulthood. These patterns of self-doubt, people-pleasing, and fear of rejection severely affect how we show up in our business and directly impact our income. Self-doubt impacts our income. Narcissists are masters at making you question your reality. This constant second guessing of yourself can become a habit, leading to chronic self-doubt. You may find it difficult to trust your instincts or make decisions without seeking reassurance from others, leaving you feeling stuck and powerless. It impacts people pleasing, also impacts our income. To avoid criticism or conflict, you might develop people pleasing tendencies, which makes sense. This can look like going out of your way to meet others' needs, even at the expense of your own well-being. You might find it difficult to say no or to express your true feelings, fearing that doing so will lead to rejection or anger. The need for approval and fear of conflict can lead to overcommitting, undercharging, and burnout. Fear of rejection impacts our income. Narcissist abuse conditions you to seek approval and validation from others, often because the narcissist made their love and acceptance conditional. This fear of rejection can make you overly cautious in relationships, afraid to be your authentic self or to ask for what you need. You might find yourself bending over backward to avoid conflict to assure others stay happy with you, even if it means sacrificing your own needs. Past experiences of rejection and criticism can make us overly cautious, avoiding risks that could lead to growth and success. These personal struggles translate also directly into professional challenges. Undervaluing our work. If we don't believe in our own worth, we might not charge enough. We might undercharge even for our services or hesitate to raise our rates. We might avoid opportunities. Fear of failure or rejection can lead us to pass up on opportunities for growth, networking, and being visible. Burnout. People-pleasing behaviors can lead to taking on too much work, not setting boundaries with clients, and ultimately burning out. Imposter syndrome. Despite all of our achievements, we might feel like frauds, attributing our success more to luck than to our skills and our efforts. And then there's fear of failure. We may avoid taking risks or pursuing opportunities because we fear making mistakes and being judged. And these patterns can limit your career growth, as you may hold yourself back or not stand up for your worth in the workplace. By understanding these dynamics, we can begin to see how crucial it is to address and heal from narcissistic trauma. I want to take a quick moment and just say that if you've experienced this kind of trauma, it's essential to acknowledge that what you went through was not your fault. Everything that you're feeling makes sense. And you also deserve love, respect, and to be treated with dignity. Healing from narcissistic abuse starts with understanding what you've been through and reclaiming your sense of self. So narcissists feed off of what's called narcissistic supply, which is forms of reinforcement that a person with narcissistic traits seeks from others to maintain their self-esteem and sense of superiority. Individuals with narcissistic tendencies often rely on this supply to feel validated, powerful, and important. Narcissistic supply can come in various forms, including praise, admiration, attention, but also even negative reactions like fear and anger. Anything that makes the narcissist feel significant. So when you react positively or negatively to a narcissist, it feeds into that supply either way, because their self-worth is largely dependent on external validation. They may go to great lengths to obtain the supply by trying to get you to react. When the supply is abundant, the narcissist may appear charming, confident, and successful. However, when the supply diminishes or is threatened, they may react with anger, manipulation, or withdrawal, displaying behaviors that can be hurtful or abusive to others. The cycle of ideation, devaluation, and discard. Narcissistic abuse often follows a predictable cycle that creates deep emotional bonds known as trauma bonds. So first, there's idolation. At the beginning of the relationship, the narcissist often puts you on a pedestal. They shower you with praise, affection, and attention, making you feel incredibly special. This phase is also known as love bombing. It's intoxicating. It draws you in, and it makes you feel as if you found someone who truly understands and values you. Then devaluation. Over time, the narcissist begins to tear you down. The praise stops, the criticism begins. They may start to nitpick, belittle, and blame you for things that aren't even your fault. The warmth you once felt from them is replaced with coldness, leaving you confused and desperate to return to the ideation phase. Then discard. Eventually, the narcissist may discard you, either abruptly or gradually, when they feel that you're no longer useful or when they want to punish you. This phase is particularly painful because it often happens without warning, leaving you feeling abandoned and worthless. In this cycle, a narcissist may move back into ideation after the discard phase as a way to regain control of their supply, which is the person that they manipulate, from fully detaching. After devaluing and discarding their target, often through criticism, neglect, and abandonment, the narcissist may sense that they are losing control over the relationship. To prevent their supply from walking away permanently, they can re-enter the ideation phase, where they shower the person with praise, affection, and attention. This sudden shift back into ideation is a tactic to confuse and re-engage the victim emotionally, making them question their feelings and believe the narcissist has changed. By reverting to idolation, the narcissist manipulates the target into thinking the relationship is worth saving, drawing them back in and restarting the cycle of abuse. This cycle of idolation, devaluation, and discard creates a trauma bond, which is a psychological bond that keeps you attached to the abuser even when the relationship is harmful. You might find yourself longing for love and validation that the narcissist gave you in the beginning, which can make it incredibly difficult to break free. Understanding these patterns is the first step to breaking free from the cycle of abuse. It's important to remind yourself that the way the narcissist treated you is not a reflection of your worth. Healing from narcissistic abuse is possible. And it starts with recognizing these behaviors and reclaiming your power. With that, it's important to recognize these patterns not as flaws in yourself, but as understandable responses to trauma. Healing begins when you start to rebuild your sense of self-worth without needing external validation, learning to trust yourself again, and to develop the courage to set boundaries and prioritize your own needs. You are not defined by the narcissist's opinion of you. Your worth is inherently who you are, and it's something that no one can take from you. The good news is that these patterns can be broken, and as you heal, you'll find that not only does your nervous system start to feel more settled and relaxed, your other relationships start to improve. And your career can also flourish as you step into your true potential. The journey of healing is about reclaiming the power that was always yours. So what is EFT? EFT, which stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, also known as tapping, is a somatic method that's not therapy. It's really about energy movement that involves tapping on specific meridian points while focusing on particular emotions or memories. This helps to release the emotional charge associated with these experiences and creates space for healing. An hour of tapping can reduce the stress hormone cortisol up to 45%. So most clients report feeling very relaxed at the end of a tapping session. The idea behind EFT is that by physically tapping on these points, we can help release any blocked energy in our body and reduce the intensity of negative emotions. This tapping sequence works directly with our body's energy system and can help our nervous system soothe, allowing us to address and heal emotional wounds more effectively. So let's talk about the concept of the inner child. My specialty is in reparenting. And our inner child represents that part of us that still holds on to these emotions, beliefs, and experiences from our childhood. In the context of narcissistic abuse, the inner child is often deeply wounded. Reparenting involves nurturing this inner child, giving it love, validation, and the care that it may have missed out on. By using EFT and the heart shine method specifically, we can address these emotional wounds and limiting beliefs from our past. Reparenting the inner child is a process where we consciously nurture and care for that part of ourselves that was hurt. We offer the love, safety, and validation that we may not have received when we needed it most. Through EFT, we can tap into these painful memories and emotions and gently releasing the hold that they have over us. As we do this, we begin to rebuild our self-worth and develop healthier boundaries, no longer allowing others to define our value or dictate our emotional state. By doing this transformative process, we can make significant positive changes in our present current life, particularly in how we show up in our business and personal relationships. I help guide clients to reparent their own inner child, which brings the power you've always had back into your own core being. And here's how. Reparenting helps us with soothing past wounds. When we reparent our inner child, we give ourselves the opportunity to go back and address the pain and trauma that we've been holding back. And this allows us to acknowledge and validate. Often our inner child holds unprocessed emotions and experiences. By acknowledging and validating these feelings, we start the healing process. Reparenting also helps us to release emotional baggage. EFT helps us to tap into these old wounds and release the pent-up emotions. This can be incredibly liberating and can free us from the past. Reparenting can help us rewrite our story. We can begin to rewrite our narrative, no longer being defined by past traumas, but instead by our strength and our resilience in overcoming them. By soothing these past wounds, we create a solid foundation for our present and future selves, allowing us to operate from a place of wholeness and empowerment. Reparenting helps us build our self-worth back up. Self-worth is often the first casualty in narcissistic dynamics. Reparenting through EFT helps us recognize our value. We start to see ourselves through a lens of compassion and understanding, recognizing our inherent worth. It helps us to develop self-compassion. Instead of criticizing ourselves for past mistakes or perceived shortcomings, we learn to treat ourselves with kindness. It helps us to think of affirmations and come up with positive beliefs. EFT allows us to replace negative self-talk with positive affirmations, helping us build stronger, more confident sense of self. But very importantly, we do this by going to the resistance first, not by forcing positivity. This is not saying, I am strong, I am healed, I am brave, I am confident when we're feeling hurt and broken inside. This really meets us where we're at in the moment and takes us step by step to those places of strength. As we build our self-worth, we become more confident in our abilities and more willing to take the necessary risks to grow our business and succeed in our personal lives. Reparenting helps us in setting healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries are essential for our well being, yet many of us struggle with setting them, especially if we have a history of narcissistic abuse, which makes sense. So, through EFT and reparenting, we learn to identify our needs, understanding what we need and what makes us feel safe and respected. It helps us to assert ourselves, learning to say no without guilt and to stand up for ourselves in a respectful yet firm manner. It helps us to protect our energy. By setting boundaries, we ensure that we're not drained by others and we can maintain our energy levels and mental health. These boundaries help us create a balanced life where our needs are met and we can thrive both personally and professionally. Reparenting helps us in embracing our true selves. One of the most significant benefits of reparenting our inner child is the ability to show up as our true selves. This means living authentically, no longer feeling the need to wear masks or pretend to be someone we're not. We embrace who we are, flaws and all. Having the confidence in our path, trusting our journey, and making decisions that align with our true values and desires. Building resilience in the face of adversity. Being authentic gives us the strength to face challenges head on, knowing that we are living in alignment with our true selves. When we embrace our authenticity, we not only improve our relationships with others, but we also attract opportunities and success that resonates with our true selves. This authenticity shines through in our business, drawing clients and partnerships that are aligned with our values and vision. So, how can reparenting our inner child help us show up more powerfully in our business? Well, charge what you're worth. Set fair prices for our products and services, knowing that our work has value. We can pursue opportunities, take risks, and seize opportunities with confidence, knowing that we are capable and deserving of success. Negotiate effectively, advocate for ourselves in business dealings. We can create healthy work-life balance, setting boundaries that allow us to maintain our well-being while pursuing our professional goals. Making these shifts not only increases our income, but also brings greater fulfillment and joy in our work. And this is all possible. This work has literally changed and saved my life, where my life is literally 180 degrees in the other direction of where it was. And I am so passionate about helping people find their true strength in themselves and not letting this type of abuse define who they are or manage in the background of how they're showing up. So with that, I want to take a pause and just come back and see if there's any questions. I'm also happy to do a tapping round if anyone wants to move some
Oh my goodness.
energy.
Sylvie, yes.
I'm going to come back here. Let me find you.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, that would be great to, I mean, I felt the whole thing like, oh my gosh, right? And probably a majority of people listening to it probably going through their mind going, oh my goodness, been there, done that, still there, still doing it. Oh my gosh. So what is something we could practice at home,
Yeah.
as we're going through this?
Yeah, what I love about tapping, and I have a YouTube where I go through like small, short tapping things, right?
Mhm.
But there's different tapping points, and you don't need to do them all. Like you can just do one, two.
Mm,
And what I really love about tapping specifically with narcissistic abuse is because that confusion and self-doubt and just not trusting our intuition sometimes can come into
mhm,
play. Tapping literally is like, I look at it as like tapping on the, like, come back to the body, come back to the body, like, come back
mm,
here. Our power is
right.
here, right? When we've gone through these mental traumas, this gets very, very confusing, and it's hard to trust it sometimes. Not all the
Mhm.
time, right? Sometimes we're awesome, but sometimes we get into that like place of self-doubt. And so when we do, like I will like tap harder and be like, come here, friend, come back here. This is where your strength is.
Mm.
This is where your power is. And not only this, but as we're tapping on this point specifically, we're releasing fear. So this is a really good one for just releasing fear. Fear of being visible, fear of making the wrong decision, fear of saying the wrong thing, fear of not being
Or
perfect.
like you said, that chronic stress, there's chronic fear also, where
Yeah.
it doesn't even have a purpose in it anymore. It's just consistent
Yep.
in you
Yep.
in that
Totally.
way.
Totally. And they find that these patterns, like, when we have chronic stress or like chronic anxiety or chronic, however, our chronic response, right? Like some people are just chronically angry or frustrated, right? Like, and those patterns they found are formed in childhood because as
Mhm.
children, we're looking at the adults in our lives and how dynamics are working in our lives because we don't have resources as a child. We can't just get up and leave and be like, you guys figure it out. Like in as a child, our whole world is our parents and caregivers.
Mhm.
And so we manage and we adjust and we kind of adapt to fit in because if we don't fit in, quite literally our survival depends on it. There is a built-in
Mhm.
fear that we will be kicked out of the tribe if we don't fit in.
Right.
And so, if we let that fear, as if at 4 years old, we were like, okay, I got to do this, I got to be really good at what I do in all areas of my life and be perfect in all areas so I can keep this fear away that I'm going to be kicked out. Then I'm going to
Mm.
strive for perfectionism. Now we have
Right.
perfectionism covering fear, right? And so these patterns play out in our adulthood, but they don't have to define us anymore, and we can actually make new choices now.
Wow. I just, this conversation is extremely powerful, and especially in the spaces of entrepreneurship,
Mhm.
right? Like one of the things that I know for certain is the way that we see, or the way we're trained to see entrepreneurship is from a masculine view. Again, not a bad thing. However, we're just designed differently as women. And that is an added stress
Yeah.
when it's not about the numbers. It's not right. When what's a priority for us is community and connection and tribal unity.
Mhm.
But what we're shown as a successful business owner is hard and tough and bottom lined and very related to uh, the opposite version of how we naturally exist in the world. So it's a
That's
hard transition, but we're not even realizing that it's happening. We're
right.
just uh, we're addressing it through our own stress factor and our chronic fear and the whole thing. And I think that's why this language of narcissism is such a big space of topic of conversation and dialogue in all aspects of industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I've met a few people and myself where you, in my relationships, it's been in my friendships where I attract that. And I always like, oh no, it's just maybe there's something not correct, right? That's happening. Why do I keep picking the same people?
Yeah.
And because I had a parent
Yeah.
that was that growing up. So you're right. We keep refining ourselves through other people and situations and professions to
Mhm.
get back here.
Mhm. Yep.
And
Yep.
that's what you're saying. So,
When we're when we have like a parent or a caregiver that was narcissistic, right? Then we're used to that dynamic. And so our nervous
mhm.
system is just used to it. And so someone that doesn't play in that dynamic might not be that interesting, right? Because it's like because our
Mm,
like consciously we're like, whoa, they're super healthy person. But I'm just not
right.
like it's easier to show in like romantic relationships, right? Like on paper, this person's perfect, but I'm not attracted to them. It's because the
Mhm.
nervous system is looking for an energetic match, right?
Mm,
And that's the
wow.
unspeakable part, the part we can't put into words on why this isn't clicking,
Mhm.
you know?
Right. Right.
because I tell clients, if we had like two mason jars and we grew up in this one and this is filled with dirty water that we don't want anymore and we know we don't want it anymore, but we've just been used to it. And for a long time we didn't even know we were in water, right? Like a fish doesn't know it's
Hmm.
in water. And so it was just our reality. We didn't know it was weird or like different or not how it had
Right.
to be, right? And so, with these tapping sessions, we bring these clients over, and I've done this myself, and you go into this beautiful, supportive, clear water container, and we're like, oh my gosh, yes, this is it. This is what I want to feel like. And then the minute like you close your eyes, you like hop back over here. Not because, but everything you want is here, but it's because we're used to
Yes.
this. And so it's
Right.
literally like we're retraining. So it takes time. You just like, nope, over here. Nope,
Right.
over, stop going over there. It's okay though, over here,
Right.
and no judgment. It's just how it works. And then at
Hmm.
some point, and it's a trip, people will say like they'll be over here long enough that now they're starting to rewire. They'll be like, did you know there's a jar over there? Yes, I did. Yes, come stay here.
Yeah. Right. And
But
did you
then
know
once you
that
can
jar is
see the
murky?
jar, right?
Yeah.
Then you have choice. Now you have choice
Mm.
to go back. And you can go back, right? And then you go back and you're like, oh, wait, I'm not making a choice that is in line with what I really want. And so then we just start rewiring. And pretty soon your automatic responses start changing. And then your
Hmm.
life starts changing because you start making different choices. You start aligning with a different vibration of
Mhm.
community, and
Yes.
everything shifts.
And I
Everything.
think that's the beauty of being a business owner. And I think that's why it's so attractive to so many women. Initially, it's like, oh, time freedom. And then you get into business, you're thinking, what freedom of time do you have? Because you're working it all.
Yeah.
But really, I think it's more rooted in our personal development.
Mhm.
Because there's nothing that forces personal development and not encouraging, it's not like prodding you, it is forcing personal development. Business is only to the degree of your own growth,
Yeah.
right? Your business is only growing to the degree you're growing.
Mhm.
So you can logically want success, but your internal space can only hit this level because of the growth that you need to experience as a human being, because that's
Mhm.
what you bring into the. And I think though men and women are in that same manner, I think women have a deeper desire for that as a business
Mhm.
versus, again, result driven and achievements, which you get anyways. It's just we have three more steps than usual to get there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I love what you do, and you have been a successful business owner prior to this new arena of emotional and uh, narcissistic healing, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
tapping. So really you bring so much to the table for us fempreneurs out here in the world trying to just survive. Really, we're not, ladies. F surviving. It's all about thriving now, but we can't do it just thinking our way through it. Because if we did, we'd already be there.
Mhm.
Trust me, I think at a higher level than I feel. Now it's switching, it's a whole different view. It's very fascinating to see who I am today from an internal space and not using my logical academic brain nearly as much
Yeah.
as I had in the past. So I highly encourage all this growth. Is there any message you'd want to share with our audience that if they're just like, I don't know what's tapping gonna do?
Yeah. Yeah. It is something that's, out of the box in a lot of ways. But yeah, you can schedule a free discovery call with me and we just talk about, what's coming up for you and see if this is a fit for you.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you if
Yeah.
it's something that I think this could be beneficial for.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom. And
Yeah.
I took so many notes. I was like, oh my gosh. And I've watched tons of videos on narcissistic because there's a particular doctor out there that this is her specialty and
Yeah.
she's talks about it. But I gained so much from just understanding the connection,
Yeah.
right? It's not
Yeah.
just logically knowing what narcissism is, but how it affects us truly. at a
Yeah.
deeper level that affects our business um, progress, not even just success, just business progress
Yeah.
in
Right.
general. Like you really nailed one on the head, which a lot of people, while we were saying it, I got a text about, I'm struggling with imposter syndrome right now. And I thought, oh my gosh, you should be listening to this.
That's really
So,
funny.
and that's one that I think a lot of us entrepreneurs really struggle with.
Mhm.
And you really brought a much clearer connection of why that is. And I
Yeah.
think that's part of the magic in this awareness piece of our self-development in our journey is
Yeah.
knowing, oh my gosh, is that why? Right.
Yeah.
And it's rooted when I was 4. Oh, good God.
Right, exactly, exactly. Because I think, I mean, I've seen people get really stuck in the research, right? Of like, I mean, there's so
Mm,
many different kinds of narcissists. I mean, there's it's just a whole thing. And so I think while I do think there is a time as you're starting to embark and recognize that maybe this is a pattern that because it's very stealthy, right? Like we don't normally realize
mhm.
it until we're like in our 40s, you know? And
Right.
so it's one of those ones where we're like, wait, what? And so then it's, of course, we're going to go into research mode to start figuring it out. And I do think there's an
Mhm.
important element to that of like, what does this mean? And it's important not to get stuck there, right? It's important
Mhm.
not to obsess about like, what type of narcissist do I think this person is? Because it doesn't matter. What matters is that
Right.
in here, it's not it's not settled. And so at
Mhm.
some point we just accept that we've done enough research, and now the path, no matter what type of narcissist it is, the path out is the same. And so then
Mm,
we just say, okay, all that's cool.
right.
I'm ready to take ownership of my stuff and move out of this. And so I think that there's like this balance too, right? Because
Yes,
it's
that's so
tempting. It's
beautiful.
tempting to to just go in
Oh
and
yeah.
look at all the
Yes.
things, you know?
Well, and I think it's also a survival mechanism. What I've learned from
Yeah.
my whole, let's just get all the information in the head. I realize now it's to win all the verbal battles of of
Yeah.
whatever I'm going to get into, because the more information I have, the more I can support my view.
Yeah.
And really, that's a learned behavior as well, right?
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
we will make sure to in the comments to put your YouTube channel so that we can get access to more of you
Okay.
until people are ready, or for people who are ready, we will also put your information where you can do a 30-minute consultation call with you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
again, thank you so much.
Yeah.
These women who show up at the Growthpreneur series are members of our Facebook community full of female entrepreneurs who are changing the world, because we are changing the way business is being done. Because we lead first from inside and then we express it out into the world. Thank you so much for being here, Sylvie. It's always such an amazing pleasure to see you and to share and learn from you. And until next time, everyone, thank you, Charlie. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye, everyone.